what really crushed me was when my dad got up to the stand and he was kind of pleading my case in terms of, telling the Board of Education, he's a good kid, I promise you, he knows better than this. And that was the first time I seen him cry. And as soon as I saw that, my whole world just turned upside down. My heart sank. And at that time, that's when I realized, like, my actions not only affect me.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
All right, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm excited to hear the story of our guest today. But before that, thank you for spending this time with us, and we always hope to bring you a story that is informative, inspiring, and that you get something really from it. I'm sweating here, Scott. I feel so hot. It's really hot.
I wonder why that is. I mean, we have had a heat wave, but you've been inside for a while.
Well, I can always count on it being freezing in here after maybe half an hour, so I'll be okay.
Yeah, but maybe you're just too excited about the show today.
Well, it goes back to where I grew up and sort of deals with the things that I grew up in, namely in Monterey Park, at Marquette High School, or just in that area in general. During my time, there were a lot of gangs, and I'm not saying that that's the story of this show, but I grew up around a lot of gangs, and you were either in a gang, knew a lot of gang members, or you were totally separate. I think that's how you classified most people where I grew up.
Yeah, I got the impression from you that most everybody in some way touched a gang member or was familiar. I mean, what percentage of the class do you think was actually involved in being in a gang or somehow involved in gang work?
So I graduated from Marquette High School in 1996. In 1992, there was a race riot. And I remember every day for 3 days at lunchtime, I walked out to the lunch court and the entire student body was separate. All the Asians were on one side, all the Hispanics were on the other side. And it didn't matter if you were in a gang, you just went to your side and they were just staring at each other for the whole lunch hour for 3 days. And prior to that, I think for a period of 2 weeks, there was a fight every day at my school between Hispanic gangs and Asian gangs. So as a freshman, 13 years old, I was walking around hugging the walls, looking down. And I remember that I was like, wow, this is, sort of like a movie. This is a really dangerous place to be. On the third day, a fight broke out and the entire place erupted. I mean, there was fighting everywhere and they couldn't stop it. They had to call the police to come and stop it. And I believe they expelled, more than 100 students who were supposedly gang members. So even after that, there were gang members there that remained. And
so that had to affect your studies and classroom activities. How did it affect it?
Well, I'm not sure about my studies because I was really focused on sports, quite often. I think I had lost a lot of interest in study at that time, but sports sort of protected me in a way. It gave me an outlet, it gave me something to do, kept me busy. But the gangs influenced culture a lot. People dressed like gang members. They styled their hair like gang members. You wouldn't recognize, you would have to know that they were a gang member to distinguish between just the style of dress and here is an actual gang member.
I'm really interested in how that held up over the following years. I know our guest today is a little bit younger, yes, and but would have also been affected, I would imagine. And what's it like today?
Yeah. And what's interesting, so, to bring in the guest, he's Bryan Chau. He's on the board of directors at the Asian Youth Center. He's the vice president there. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Howdy. Thank you so much for having me, folks. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your story, but why don't you share with the audience, what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
Yeah, I actually grew up here in the San Gabriel Valley, born in Monterey Park at Garfield Hospital. Went to elementary school at Emerson Elementary, which is also in Monterey Park as well. So just kind of grew up here and yeah, pretty much I'm a local native here.
Nice. And for those who don't know, what is the Asian Youth Center?
Yeah, so the Asian Youth Center is a nonprofit organization started back in 1989. We initially started out with after-school programs and parent classes for the Asian immigrant population. Now, since then, we've actually grown to provide more of like the delinquency reentry type of programs, outreach programs, as well as more community-based type of outreach. Since then, we've actually grown substantially to also serve the Antelope Valley areas and the Inglewood areas. And we provide language type of translation within, in English, Vietnamese, Spanish, Chinese, and Chinese, essentially. So really just to help the youth out here in the local community.
Well, you have a special connection, right? You don't just work there now, but you have a connection to the Asian Youth Center.
Yeah.
You want to share that story?
Yeah. So when I was growing up in the San Gabriel Valley, it was a little different in terms of when I was in elementary school, I was actually picked on a lot. And for the most part, it was because of my race. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't understand why. Right. I would be, and kind of how you mentioned earlier, it was just this weird tension between the Asian community and the Latino community. Right. And I would get into fights all the time, being picked on. I was one of those kids that didn't like, obviously, who likes being getting picked on. Right. And I chose to, fight back, most of the time. And that got me into trouble as well. And I remember thinking to myself all throughout, second, third, fourth grade being picked on, something kind of turned. It was when I first started out, I was actually well liked by Latino folks. I was actually good friends with them. And something had happened, and I don't know, some girl I was dating in elementary school at the time broke up with me, and then started dating this guy, and then all of a sudden the whole thing turned, and I started getting made fun of. I started getting picked on heavily, by the group, and was forced into fighting a lot. And it got so bad to the point where I remember my sixth grade year, every lunchtime, I would go into my teacher's classroom and just kind of sit there every single day at lunch and just hang around the kids that were there, just because I didn't want to be outside and get exposed to all that.
Wow, that's awful.
Yeah. And so with that, I grew a lot of resentment. And I thought to myself, in sixth grade, being promoted, eventually going to middle school, and I was going to get transferred to a middle school that was outside of the Garvey School District, which is in San Gabriel. And so I thought to myself, this is a good way to kind of, reinvent myself, if you will. And so I said, you know what, I'm never going to let this happen to me again, which is why, trying to be that tough guy, trying to emulate that gangster attitude, right, was something that I wanted to do. And so I started emulating that. First day of school, I grew my hair out, had like you described earlier,
long bangs.
With the long bangs, slicked back, big khaki shirt, like double XL. I wore the Dickies. I had the all white Cortezes and stuff like that.
Wow.
And so when I showed up on the first day of school, I was very standoffish. And then I met some, and so by the way I was dressed, some folks came up to me. We started, chopping it up, if you will, and started talking. I was very standoffish still, but I think that they liked that aggressiveness that I was trying to emulate, and then from there, got into a lot of fights, started, picking fights with people that, you looked at me the wrong way, then it would come up and hit you and this, that, and the third, right? And then from there, that kind of just snowballed with me getting exposed to, meeting gang members and things of that nature, starting to hang out with them, started carrying weapons and things of that nature, and started selling stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And that's kind of how that started. Pretty much the genesis of it was me being bullied and essentially being tired of it.
So this was all a reaction to what you had suffered through.
That is correct.
At the time you took on this new attitude and this new persona,
Mm-hmm.
how authentic did you feel you were? Did you feel this is what you were supposed to be, or did you go home at night and feel that you're pretending? What was your thought at that time?
Yeah, no. My thought at the time was I wanted to embody the whole entire thing, and a little bit does come back to me saying, but when I was that young, I was just so enraged to the fact where I didn't even think twice about that in terms of like.
So you fully embraced it.
This was me.
This was you.
This was me, and this is how it's gonna be.
What was your family life like at that time?
It was my typical, parents being at work all day. My mom or my dad wake up early, take me and my sister to school, and then they would work all day up until maybe like 8 p.m. at night. And so at the time, it was just kind of like my grandparents raising me, picking me up from school, then taking me back. But then once I got back, they couldn't really do anything. So most of the time it was, I was roaming the streets with my friends in groups and walking around and things like that. So just kind of doing hooligan stuff.
So your relationship with your parents, how was that? Did you spend time with them on the weekends, or how was your relationship?
Yeah, no, I was out most of the time because they worked 7 days a week. So I was out most of the time. And I think having Asian American immigrant parents, with that, let me try to explain this. So I never had a really good, conversation / dialogue with my parents. It was never like, hey son, tell me about your day, or what are you up to, this, that, and the other. It was just one of those things where, hey, are you fed? Did you eat yet? Is everything okay? Okay, cool. We never had that kind of dialogue. And that's something that, and it's just the culture, right? But that's something that I wished that I had earlier on in my life, because at the end of the day, I felt like, my parents didn't understand me at all. We didn't talk about anything, right? And so a lot of the times, me venting out my frustrations and things of that nature didn't come through them. It came through, hanging around with the wrong folks and talking to those guys, as opposed to, talking to my parents deeply about things.
Did you have any mentors or any, adults other than your parents that maybe you looked up to or that you could talk to?
At the time, no, not really. A lot of it was just me hanging out with my friends, and then whoever might be the older guys that I would talk to, and they would have some influence upon what I was doing and things of that nature.
So you were just kind of a dangling piece that you couldn't find yourself other than with the gangs or these friends that you had.
Right.
Where were your friends at school when you were being picked on?
They were there too.
They were also getting picked on?
You know what? Not to the severity of me, I guess. My friends would be there definitely to back me up, but then I was the main focal point for some reason in terms of, getting picked on and things like that. And so a lot of the fights, I was there by myself, just kind of taking care of it, if you will. So
I shared with you that a couple of my friends, maybe 3, in fact, 4, became gang members because they were picked on. And I didn't know until I was an adult that was the reason that they had joined a gang. Each and every one of them, that was the same reason. I know you don't know this, but I'm a fan of alternative education, namely like home education.
Yeah.
And how awful, right? Like, how can a child go through this and expect to learn anything when probably the thing that is on your mind day and night is, how are you going to get through the next day?
Right.
Yeah. It is a horrible feeling. And if you don't have somebody to talk to then you just probably feel there's nowhere you can go.
Yeah, that was really the tough part for me. I didn't know who to talk to, or who to confide in at the time.
Now, were your parents immigrants?
Correct.
And how was their English? How did they fit into the society here?
I would say my dad spoke English like fairly decently. Obviously, he had an accent, but he's been in the furniture business for a long time. So he sells furniture. My mom's English is not too good at the time, but now their English is pretty decent, I would say. But yeah, their English wasn't that great at all.
Did you grow up speaking a lot of Chinese, either Mandarin or Cantonese, or
Vietnamese actually?
Oh, Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my dad is one of those folks that was born in China, and went over to Vietnam, and he lived in a coastal city called Nha Trang. My mom is from down south in Saigon, and so. But the funny thing is, they didn't meet until they got here to the States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's how they met. And
yeah, I know Nha Trang. I've been there many times.
Oh, you have? Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
Right. Yeah. Have you gone to Vietnam?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
That's something I definitely need to go and do.
So you sort of found support in this group, right?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah. So to tell that better, what with AYC you mean, or
you found support with these? I think you described them as hooligans.
Yeah.
Gang members.
Yeah. So even before I kind of got into that, in elementary school, I was just enthralled about, what I saw not only around me, but what I saw in movies and things like that. And I was very enthralled about, being the big dog, having the power, and then, what I really wanted was, just to have backup at the end of the day, in case, I was, victimized again, this, that, and the other. And so I started rolling with them and started doing things that I shouldn't have been doing in the first place. And the real pivotal moment there was when I actually was expelled from middle school for selling drugs at the time. When that had happened, I actually didn't really care at the time. That kind of got me into the cycle in which I was going to double down and say, you know what, screw these people. They don't even understand me. I'm just gonna double down and keep doing this, right? And that time, not only did I feel lost, but I felt like I didn't belong in society at the same time, because coming from being picked on all the time, and then finally finding a place where I felt good, and I'm getting hit on the other side, But what really was the pivotal moment was when I was in front of the Board of Education for my hearing, for the expulsion recommendation and whatnot. Of course, my mom cried, but what really crushed me was when my dad got up to the stand, and he was kind of pleading my case in terms of telling the Board of Education, he's a good kid, I promise you, he knows better than this. And that was the first time I've ever seen my father cry. My father has always been that very heads down, hardworking, just very stoic type of individual. And that was the first time I seen him cry. And as soon as I saw that, my whole world just turned upside down. My heart sank. And even to this day, I have never seen him cry, like once ever. And at that time, that's when I realized, like, my actions not only affect me, because I didn't care about me at the time. I just, whatever, I'm just gonna live my life. But I saw the grave impact that it had on the folks around me and the folks that loved me the most. And so after that moment, I kind of snapped out of it, and I said, you know what? I never want to see my dad or my mom cry over me ever again. And the kind of pain that I saw in their eyes really just did it for me, man. And so from there on, and obviously they recommended me for expulsion. I went to a continuation school, shortly after. But from there, that's when I committed myself to just doing a complete 180. That day, I remember I got home and I threw away all my stuff, all the baggy clothes, all that good jazz, all threw all that stuff away. And I remember asking my mom if she could take me to the mall. And I went to American Eagle and bought some polo shirts and some nice fitting stuff. And I was just done with it from that point forward. And so I worked really hard and got through continuation school as quick as I could. And then with the continuation school, it's a little different. I went to a continuation school called Options for Youth. It was like a little charter kind of thing. And they would give you packets of like work. And you would read that packet, do the homework, and then go in and take a test, and then you're done. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. And so I noticed that there was like a martial arts, like Muay Thai gym that was down the street from my house. And so I enrolled in that and then kind of fell in love with that from there. And then long story short, I got through all that. Oh, I forgot to mention this. So as soon as I made that decision, it was like, how do I say it? It was like laws of attraction kind of thing. Because as soon as myself internally made that decision, I actually received a letter from one of my old speech teachers at Jefferson Middle School. Her name was Miss Wolpert. Shout out to you, Miss Wolpert. I love you. And she wrote me a letter that brought me to tears. And it was a handwritten one-page letter. And to sum it up, she essentially said, "Hey, Bryan, you have a great future ahead of you. I don't know what this whole gangster facade is, but I see right through it. You have unlimited potential." And she told me that please don't let this one mistake define the rest of your future. And so that me getting that letter really reconfirmed that I made the right choice in kind of making that switch. And then, of course, me being expelled, they had given me about 640 community service hours to do.
How many days is that, Scott? 8-hour days?
Oh, well, that's 16 40-hour weeks.
16 40-hour weeks.
It's 80 days.
Yeah.
80 8-hour days.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
So it was a good time. So that's how I got acquainted with the Asian Youth Center, because that's where I did all of my community service hours. And I met some great people there. Now here's the thing. I was supposed to be solely doing community service hours, right? Whether it be putting together paperwork, filing, making sure the rooms and the classrooms were tidy, picking up trash and things of that nature, right? But one of the program directors there at the time, his name is Josh Lee. Shout out to Josh Lee if you're watching this. I love you too, man. He was such a great and genuine person, because obviously when I came in there, he knew what I had done, what my background was. And he was definitely there to encourage me and again, reconfirm that, hey man, don't let this one mistake make the rest of your life. You're better than this. And he continued to push me every day to be better and reconfirm like, hey, you're here now. Let's get through this and keep it going.
How old were you when you had this complete turnaround? When you were expelled?
Yeah, 13.
You were 13.
Yep.
And what was the name of your teacher that wrote the letter to you?
Miss Wolpert.
Okay. And when did you have her as a teacher?
In 7th grade.
7th grade. So you were probably maybe 12, or just right before this, right?
Right.
So she must have seen something in you. So in this person that was bouncing around, she saw something, right? Mm-hmm. What happened to the other, students that you were hanging around with? How did they develop? The gangsters, the hooligans. Did they ever have this kind of turnaround, or was there something special about you that you were able to do it? Were they able to do it? Right.
So some of the guys that I hung out with definitely steered clear and started progressing to the right side a little bit more, but it took them a much longer than me, and then some just didn't. I can tell you that the main I guess gang member thigh-low that I was hanging out with at the time. When I got reinstated back into high school, it was the second half of freshman year. I had found out that individual was shot and killed point blank in his car. And so in retrospect, I was thinking back, man, if that one incident, had never happened to me, who knows if I would have, been riding shotgun in that car and probably got blasted too, So that's.
Do you ever think about this? Were you just lucky, or was there something about you that was different?
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, or I don't know. I don't think there's anything too special about me. It's just I feel like, with the circumstances that I was given, I was extremely fortunate to have that one incident happen to me and happen so early, and the fact that I was able to readjust and really assess the situation to make that change.
I think he has to have a high level of empathy to act upon something, to see the pain in his parents, right? Like, because if you don't, it doesn't matter to you, right? Yeah,
I can see that, right? Because that was really the single thing that turned you.
Yeah, because when I thought about how much my parents struggled, just to give me a better life than they had, both my parents escaping a war-ravaged country, coming over here on a boat, working day and night, just for me to just screw it all up.
And how did your sister respond to all of this? And what kind of life was she going through?
She was actually the angel of the two of us two kids. I kind of felt like she saw what I was doing and learned from my mistakes. Essentially, she's only a year younger than me, but I feel like that's kind of how our lives came to be, because she's never gone to trouble. She's never done any of that, any of the crazy stuff that I did. And I felt like she was just, seeing what was happening to me and kind of just picked up on it fairly quickly and just said, hey, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be smart. So,
one of my former clients, we used to have this joke, and it's based on the knowledge that oftentimes people have to be brought to their knees before they actually can change. And so her pastor, when people would go to him for prayer, the pastor would pray that they would be brought to their knees. And so the joke between us, we're like, I'll pray for you. She's like, no, I'll pray for you. But
well, I've said this before. I often feel that a person should fail.
Yep.
Because if they don't fail, they don't have that opportunity to learn from failure.
Right. I'm certainly a firm believer in that. I kind of take that to heart in terms of, not necessarily having to learn the hard way every single time, but I feel like hardships and struggles that we go through really define who our character truly is. Sure. What you do beyond that, after that, really defines your character, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a really touching, awesome story. I know there's more to it, but we ask each guest to bring an item with them. And what did you bring with you today?
I brought my boxing glove here.
Okay, it's green. I've never seen a green boxing glove before. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when I was when I first got Expelled, I had some extra time and I had joined a Muay Thai gym, and I was working and I kind of fell in love with it, and I felt like this is a good way to not only help me get better from a physical standpoint, but also from a spiritual standpoint, in which it would keep me humble, right? Because anytime you walk into a gym, you think you're the baddest guy there, and you get hit a couple times, you're like, oh man, I'm not that great, right? And then there are other days when you feel on top of the world and you're doing great against some folks, but there's always someone there to kind of keep you humbled. And so that was something that I wanted to dedicate myself to, and I still do it to this day. And it's been really good. I have an extended family there at the gym, and yeah, that's it brings huge significance. It's something that's kept me out of trouble for the most part. And I've had my ins and outs with training and kind of steering myself the wrong way and then coming back. But having come back to this has always been a good foundation for me.
One of the previous guests, maybe 2 episodes ago, my good friend Danny, I had gone through an event in my life, and I remember having dinner with him, and I said, Danny, why do you think these things happen to us? Because he had shared something really difficult, and he's like, Russ, I think it's because we're meant to use this later on. And I was really struggling at that time, and I said, I've looked down that road, and I can see that I'm just not ready for that yet. But now, maybe 5 years later, I can see that because the people that have gone through what I've gone through, I know what they're experiencing. I have the words and I know how to reach them in the way that they need to be reached. I would imagine that you are also able to reach kids who are maybe going through or have gone through a very similar situation. Is that sort of your role in where you are now, or what do you do now at the Asian Youth Center?
Yeah, so as a board member, we assist in making decisions, obviously for the organization as a whole, and then work together with the executive director there, Michelle Furridge. But that was the main reason why I wanted to join AYC and to give back in that way. Was to be able to talk to kids and just to make sure that that they know that this is not the end of the world. This is not the end all be all. You can always improve from your mistakes and become a better person and learn from them and be even better in that fact. So,
do you get to share your story with them?
I have on several occasions, yeah, and it's good to see to talk to the young kids, and help out. So it's truly rewarding for me.
And what's interesting, the Asian Youth Center, it's right off of Del Mar Boulevard next to Smith Park. Mm-hmm. And I remember many years ago, I was looking, for a part-time job, and they were posting for an after school recreational director, something like that.
Yeah.
And it sounded interesting to me because I love working with youth and kids. I never applied there though, but I'm guessing that's sort of the programs, mm-hmm. right, that you guys do.
Yep.
So what are you involved with nowadays with them? I know you said you're expanding your reach and into other cities. Mm-hmm. Do you get to work directly, like where you are actually speaking to them, or are you more, on advising how the programs are going?
Right. I'm more of the latter.
Okay.
Since being a board member, I'm a little bit more removed from the day to day. We did have a plan for me to start, branching out and being part of more integrated with the program, but with COVID and everything like that, it was fairly tough. And so during COVID, we had actually pivoted and done all of our after school and tutoring programs online. One of the big things that we pushed for and that was doing very well for the community was our emergency food program. Prior to COVID, we had distributed about, I want to say like 1,800 meals per month. But since COVID happened, from March of 2020 over to 2021, we had served over 400,000 meals to our community for families in need, which is about 400 families a month that we're feeding. So that's one big thing that we were working on during this whole pandemic, to make sure that all families were fed, and because I know everybody was going through a hard time, no one was working. So that's something that.
So is that for any community member, or is there a qualification?
Yeah. So low income families.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
How does the Asian Youth Center generate their funds?
The huge obviously is fundraising, right? Receiving donations from the community and prominent members, but a lot of our contracts are with the county and the state. So whether it be a contract for gang intervention, work reentry, and youth employment services, we get those contracts from the state and the local county as well.
You mentioned that you have expanded, I believe you said Lancaster or...
Yep, Antelope Valley.
Antelope Valley. Are you dealing with Asian youth only, or
No. So the thing about the Asian Youth Center is, I know we start off as a to help Asian immigrants and things like that, but we serve all youth. So that's why we're going through kind of a rebranding, kind of like the YMCA. We just want to be known as AYC.
When he said Inglewood, I was like, oh, are there a lot of Asians in Inglewood?
Right. Right. But we serve youth of all ethnicities. The main goal is just to get them out of the situation they're in and improve their lives. A lot of it has to deal with the relationship between the kids themselves and the parents. And so a lot of the programs is us kind of helping bridge that gap between child and parent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about you and your relationship with your parent. But let's take a quick break and we'll come back to that point about the parent.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Wormuth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, we're back with Bryan. Before the break, you were sharing with us one of the goals of the AYC is to bridge the gap between parents. And I mentioned I was going to ask you about your relationship with your parents, but it sort of got explained later on. I put together that you didn't have a terrible relationship because of your reaction to their crying in the courtroom. So, but how do you guys go about that with repairing the relationships with the parents?
So a lot of it would come down to having the counselor there, and just doing specific exercises revolving around them communicating with each other.
Also, are they coming to the centers and having like a therapy?
Yeah, and a lot of it would be done at the house, at the home.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so it would just be exercises for them to effectively communicate with each other, really kind of get down to how the child's feeling, how the parent's feeling, and kind of merging those together as well.
I would imagine that you guys sometimes have to report situations, right, with parents, and maybe being a mandatory reporter if you observe or hear something. Right. Do you see a difference in the type of difficulties in a community like, let's say, San Gabriel versus Inglewood, or are they similar? I think
deep down when it's rooted, obviously the dynamics out there in Inglewood are a little different from an outside perspective, but I really think it comes down to the child and the parent connection. The stronger that is, the more involved that the parents are in the individual's life, the better it can go. So
going back to your story, do you think that if your parents, maybe one or both, were home more often or spent more time with you, that maybe you would have had a different treatment at school or a different outcome there?
I think so. Just because I felt like I would have felt like it would have been easier to talk to my parents, but then again, that barrier was there in terms of like that traditional Asian culture where you don't really talk about feelings too much, right? It's just kind of like hey, are you fed? Are you hungry? You okay? How how did you do your homework yet? That kind of thing, and that's what that was the main focal point in terms of like our conversations. Are you doing good at school? Okay, cool. Why aren't you doing this and this?
What kind of relationship do you have today with your parents?
I definitely feel it's come full circle. Just because now that I'm a little bit older, I realize. I mean, I've always loved my parents, and I've always known that they strived and they sacrificed so much for me to be where I am today. And so right now, I mean, I'm I still keep in, I'm still very, very good with my parents. We live together still. And I made it a point to myself and why I worked so hard throughout these years is to make sure that they're good. So, at this point, I'm making sure that all their bills are paid off, the mortgage of the house is taken care of, and all that good stuff. So that's what I want to make sure I give back to my parents, first and foremost.
Well, you definitely have turned around from that point at age 13, and it's just remarkable to me the age that happened, because some people maybe that doesn't happen till much later in life, if at all.
Right.
And kudos to you for having that and taking that action. Then, that's a really amazing story. I know Scott's probably still thinking about your gift that you brought, but we like to go into a little bit more about you and specifically the things that you like to do in the San Gabriel Valley.
So, Bryan, this might be a little lighter topic.
Cool.
This is a point we call the SGV3. We like to hear about 3 of your favorite places or activities, events that occur in the San Gabriel Valley. It can be anything that you can think of that's important to you. What would you say is one of your 3 favorite things in or about the San Gabriel Valley?
Definitely. My top one right now would have to be Sit Yo Tong. And Sit Yo Tong is my Muay Thai school that I go to.
Where is that?
It's in Monrovia, California.
Okay.
Shout out to Crew Walter. I love you and my Sit Yo Tong family.
What's the address?
260 Taylor Avenue.
Taylor, okay.
Yeah. So it's in a little like industrial cut. But it's a full facility. We have a full training weight room. We have a big main lobby. We have a full-size ring. We also have a full-size octagon cage in there. So a lot of our folks not only train in Muay Thai, but a lot of folks train in MMA, and we do have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes there as well. But historically, we are a Muay Thai school. Sit Yo Tong being the original camp in Thailand, and our Crew Walter fought under that banner. And was given the blessings by Grandmaster Yotong, and was able to bring one out here into the Southern California area.
How long have you been involved with that particular location?
A little over 3 years now, on and off, training there. But this past year was when I really came back full force and was training every day, 2-3 times a day. It was just something that I got just so addicted to, and everyone there there's such a good energy there. Everybody's trying to get each other better, and that's when I really kind of switched up my way of thinking in terms of just becoming a better person every step of the way. Through that, I was able to give up drinking alcohol. I got off social media and really tuned in to being the best person I can be, not only financially but spiritually and mentally as well, and physically.
That's great.
Oh, sorry. Before I forget, earlier you had mentioned a movie that you wanted to be. I forget how you described it. Growing up, like you wanted to be the have backup or. I'm interested because movies heavily influenced me at a time in my life, probably a decade or so before you. At that time, but do you remember what movies you were talking about?
Let me see.
If not, okay, we can cut out whole thing. But
okay,
yeah. You had talked about just maybe films had, made you want to be this kind of person, right? But probably just a general influence.
Yeah, it was just like a general thing.
Right.
Oh, you know what? A lot of it was like hip hop music, to be more specific.
Oh, okay.
I listened to a lot of hip hop. I listened to a lot of Tupac, a lot of Big, and so that's a better frame of reference right there.
Okay.
So what is the second SGV event or location for you?
The second one, Would it be bad if I said AYC again?
No, that's
Yeah.
an important place.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an important place for me, just because I spent so much time there, and the folks that were there were just so warm and inviting and so encouraging, and it kept me in a place where me making the decision that I made to not continue on with doing the bad things I was doing, it really cemented it.
Yeah.
During the time I was there, because when you think about doing community service, right, all you're doing is it's supposed to be a punishment, right? You're just there picking up trash, just hating life. But then Josh, who was the program director at the time, he was actually very active in making sure that I was a part of the program. So most of my hours spent there were actually hanging out with those folks in the program and doing different activities, where there'd be like nutritional, educational based type of stuff, where I remember this challenge where he sent us all to a supermarket and we were supposed to make a meal from a calorie perspective, like a standard 2,000 calorie kind of thing a day. And we would go out to the grocery store and buy stuff. And I remember my team, we kind of cheated a little bit, because all we did was we went to the freezer aisle and got a bunch of those microwave dinners. Like, hey, 2,000 calories, we did it. But yeah, it was small things like that really let me see the other side of what this could be, because they could have, like I said, easily just punished me the entire time and just made me do just hard labor or whatnot, right? Just not fun things. But he took it upon himself to make me be part of the program and made sure I was having fun at the same time. And so I think that made a real big impact on how I perceive things as well.
Right. Well, AYC is a very influential part of the community. It was for you personally, but what they're doing today, even the food service that they're providing. So what's a third thing for you?
My third thing would probably be Gabrielino High School, my high school. I know that a lot of folks, when you ask them about how was high school, they're like, oh, it sucked. I didn't like it, but I was fortunate enough to come from a perspective in which I was recently expelled. All these things happened. And when I first got back into high school, which was the second half of freshman year, I really wanted to hit it hard. I was like, man, I'm going to do everything that I possibly could. And so, I went to high school. I got in right away. I one of my friends had recommended me, like, hey, you did speech a little bit in middle school. Why don't you try it here at Gabrielino, right? And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And then so I met the head speech coach there. His name is Derek Ewell. Shout out to Derek. I love you too. And I would say, and when he first met me, he knew kind of like what I had been through and kind of my rap sheet, if you will. And the first thing he told me was like, Bryan Chau, I don't care what you've done before, but when you come in here, I expect this, and this, I expect excellence. I expect you to work hard. And so from there on, he was actually one of the greatest influences in my life all throughout high school. Whether I would talk to him about personal things, and he would guide me through those, relationships, this, that, and the other. But from there, that's where I really, really, really turned on the jets and worked really hard, and it paid off because I was able to qualify for the state tournament twice. I qualified for the national tournament twice. Won a bunch of awards and trophies and things like that. But at the same time, I got involved in sports too. I was on the track team, I was on the cross country team, and I was on the wrestling team. And then I also joined a how do you call it? Like a club in which we did community service as well. And so I did all those things during my time in high school.
That was a Tri-High YMCA club.
Yes, yes, that's it. That was the one I was in. I did.
Yeah, I was in a YMCA club in Mark Keppel, and so I think Gabrielino, I forget when they were built, but after I had graduated.
Were you in AKA?
No, I was in Kuakua.
Oh, okay, cool. I was actually in Solorians,
Okay.
which was based out of San Gabriel High School, because I had a lot of friends there, and so I just naturally gravitated towards that.
Sure. Well, your story is definitely one of triumph over adversity, and just the way that people have impacted your life. These are the things that are really fulfilling, in someone's career, right? That I've tried to aspire to, because earning money doesn't give you that feeling,
Right.
Buying things doesn't do that, but these stories and these people in your life, maybe they're watching this or listening to this. That is really fulfilling. That really gives someone a sense of purpose and that their life has meaning and that they've done something.
Absolutely.
Right? I really thank you for sharing your story with us, and then for our listeners, what a treat.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So how can people get in touch with the AYC, and if they want to help or donate, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, please. You guys can, folks can visit the AYC website, www.aycla.org. It'll have all kinds of information of ways to donate, and the ways to even, and if you don't, if you can't donate monetary value, you can definitely donate time in helping, whether it be community service or helping us out with our after school tutoring programs as well. There's various ways that you can definitely help, but or you can reach out to me personally, and I'll be more than happy to direct you in the right place.
How can they get in touch with you?
Yes, you can reach me at Bryan@acceleratenetworks.com. That's ACCELER, the number 8 networks.com. That, and by the way, that is the company that I work for. We are an IT consulting firm and provide professional services for any companies looking to implement any type of network hardware, whether it be storage, network, compute, virtualization. We have engineers that provide from start to finish architecture, design, implementation, and post support as well.
Awesome. Oh, tell us about the ice cream that you brought.
Yes. How could I forget? Yes. So the ice cream, so you can follow them at Tasty Food 626. They're actually good friends of mine that I've known since middle school. Great friend of mine, and then we partnered up just to get this going. It started off as a COVID pivot, if you will. My friend Waldo Yan has been in the restaurant and cooking ever since I've known him. He's had a passion for cooking. His parents owned a restaurant in which he was very, very, very passionate about working in, and so food has been his life all throughout. He's a UCLA grad, political science, graduated early even, but he always came back to food, man. And so during COVID, when the restaurants, had unfortunately been shut down, he was, at home and just trying to figure out what he could do. And he just started making ice cream. and this guy, I tell you, man, he is one unique individual because there's so much research that he does. Wow. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm just gonna make some ice cream and I'm just gonna throw some flavors together and no.
But these are very, very special flavors that you brought today, 2 samples.
Right. One of them is a hojicha, which is a play on the roasted tea. That's a dairy one, and the other one is the guava paloma, which is a vegan option, and it tastes delicious. So,
oh wait, the guava paloma is not dairy?
Nope, it's vegan.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
How can people find these products?
So right now is you can find it on Instagram, and then he'll deliver it to you once you place the order. It's Tasty Food 626.
Is that the same Tasty Foods that there's a restaurant on San Gabriel?
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
That's his restaurant.
Oh,
that's his parents' restaurant in the supermarket.
That is the one that Eva recommended, right?
That I don't remember.
Yes,
Yeah.
He made a killer Hainan chicken. Is that where
No,
you?
so one of our guests is friends with the owners of the restaurant, and she recommended them. But I mean, we'd love to have Waldo on the show if he's interested.
Oh,
in coming.
yes, he would be a great candidate. Yeah.
Okay.
So
It is Tasty Foods.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've seen it.
So a
yeah.
lot of the flavors that he came up with are really based off of, the local food that is here and based off of, friends and family, inviting each other to their homes and trying out those foods. So he really wanted to make those flavors prevalent. And of course, eventually we're working on opening up a storefront as well, and hopefully getting into some manufacturing, things of that nature. But he reads so much books. There's been so much testing. He even bought an Italian ice making machine straight from Italy. All the instructions were in Italian and things like that. And so he's really about it.
Wow. I'm excited. I hope you'll come on this show.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, that was a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I wish you the best of luck and success for AYC in the future. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Absolute
thank
pleasure.
you to everybody who's listened to this today too. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank you for sharing this time with us. If you're new to the show, please consider subscribing and leaving us a comment. If you're a regular listener, we'd love to hear from you too. You can always reach out to us at our website, sgvmasterkey.com. Thanks again.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.